Hello, this is Leroy Meadows, and in this session we're going to work some exercises related to the weighted average method, and then we're going to look at uh, an exercise on hybrid costing. So let's go ahead and get started. The first production department of Stone Incorporated reports the following for April. Compute the number of equivalent units of production for both direct materials and conversion for April using the weighted average method. So we need to compute the equivalent units of production for both direct materials and conversion for the month of April. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is see, and let's make sure that the numbers they give us, and I just like to make sure here, that the numbers they give us, that we are accounting for everything that we need to account for. So in beginning work in process inventory, we had 60,000 units plus 322,000 units started and completed, for a total of $382,000. And we can see here that between the units transferred out and still in ending inventory, 300,000 plus 82,000, 382,000. Okay, so we're good. So we've accounted for all the units. Now let's calculate the equivalent units of production. So first of all, let's start with the units completed and transferred out. And then let's put in our ending work in process inventory for the units here. So completed and transferred out, we have what, 300,000 units. And then for ending work in process inventory, oh, that should be 300,000, not 80, not 30,000. And then we have 82,000 here. Okay, so the units completed and transferred out. Now, if they're completed and transferred out, that means that we've added all the direct materials and they're fully converted. So I'm going to put in 100% completed for direct materials and 100% completed for conversion costs. So now I want to compute the total number of equivalent units of production for completed and transferred out for direct materials. Well, obviously 100% of 300,000 is 300,000. And then 100% of 300,000 is 300,000. Okay, so we're good there. Now let's look at our ending work in process. We have 82,000 units that are still being converted, and they're still going through the process of conversion in the at the end of the month. So let's see how far along they are. Okay, now we're told that 8 materials are 80% complete. So normally we would expect to see this at 100, especially being in the first department. But there are times where we could have multiple drops of materials. So or the multiple introduction of materials. So we'll just go with 80% here. And that's fine. That won't change anything much. We'll still do the calculation the same way. And then for conversion costs, we are 30% complete. So in order to calculate my equipment, and let's just look at direct materials for a moment. We have 300,000 units to have all the materials. And now I have 82,000 units to have 80% of the materials. So my equivalent unit of productions for ending work in process is going to be 82,000 times 80%. So let's see, 82,000 times 0.80 gives me 65,600. So let's put that in here, 65,600. So my total equivalent units of production in total for direct materials is what? 365,600. Now let's look at conversion costs. Out of those 82,000 units that are started but not yet completed, for conversion, they are only 30% complete. So let's see how far along they are. So how many equivalent units of production we have. So 82,000 times 0.30. So my equivalent unit of productions for ending inventory, $24,600. Or 24,600 units rather. So my equivalent unit of productions for conversion I'm going to add in my 300,000 and then my 24,600 to get 324,600. Okay, so that is the number of equivalent units of production using the weighted average method. Now, let's look at the next exercise here. And it says the production department described in exercise 16-8, which is exercise we just completed, reports the cost information below. Okay, so, and then it says A, compute the cost per equivalent unit for both direct materials and conversion. And then B, use the weighted average method, assign April's cost to the department's output, specifically its units transferred to the next department and its ending work in process inventory. Okay, so let us take and we have to figure out the cost per equivalent unit. Now, under the weighted average method, we take all costs incurred to date. So let's start with direct materials and let's just focus on direct materials. The first thing we need to look at is what is our beginning work in process inventory? How much is that? And that's $118,472. Now, what is the amount of direct materials I added this period? Well, the cost of the direct materials I added this period comes out to be $850,368. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And for my total cost then that I've incurred through the end of this period, and let's see, 118,472 plus 850, 368. So I'll get a total direct materials cost incurred to date of $968,840. Now, I want to divide that by the equivalent units of production. What were my equivalent units of production? For direct materials, let's go back here, 365,600. So let's go ahead and plug that in here. 365,600 equivalent units of production. So my cost per equivalent unit is going to be, take the dollar amount there and divide it by 365,600 for a cost of $2.65 per equivalent unit of production. So let's put 265 right here. Okay. Now, let's do conversion. For conversion, let's figure out how much we have here. Let me move this over here so I have it ready to go. Cost of beginning work in process for conversion was how much? $48,594. So $48,954. How much in cost did I add this period for conversion? Well, I added $649,296. So $649,296. So what are my total costs for conversion? 48,954 or 594 plus 649,296 will equal $697,890. So $697,890. And I flipped that there. 48,594. There we go. So now I'm going to take my total conversion costs, divide that by the equivalent units of production for conversion. So what was my equivalent units of production for conversion? We got it right here, 324,600. So let's go back here. 324,600 So let's divide that out. 697,890 divided by 324,600 gives me a cost of $2.15 per equivalent unit of production for conversion. So $2.15. Okay. Now I can go ahead and determine what is the value of my ending inventory right here, and the amount of and the value of the amount of units transferred to the next department. So let's take a look here. For completed and transferred out units, I'm going to need to go back through here. So I want to go ahead and probably just screenshot that here, just so I don't have to keep going back and forth. And I'll make that a little bit smaller. Okay. So completed and transferred out, I had 300,000 units. And the cost per equivalent unit for direct materials is what? How much? $2.65. So what are my total costs here? 300,000 times 265 equals $795,000 of materials that were in the units that we transferred out. Now what about conversion costs? Well, all 300,000 units were complete. I've got that here. And conversion costs were what, $2.15 per equivalent unit of production. So when I take 300,000 times 2.15, I will get $645,000. So what is going to be the total cost of my units transferred out? It's going to be the total cost of materials and the total cost of conversion. So 795,000 plus 645,000, and that total will be 1,440,000. So that is the value of my inventory that I transferred to the next department. Now, let's calculate our ending work in process. What are the number of equivalent units of production I had for direct materials? Well, I had what? 65,600. We see that right here. So 65,600 at a cost of $2.65 per equivalent unit of production. So my ending inventory has 600 times 2.65. So my ending inventory has $173,840 worth of material. So 173,840. Now let's compute conversion costs. Conversion costs, my equivalent unit of production, 24,600 for my ending work in process inventory. I see that right here, 24,600 times my cost per equivalent unit up here, 215 for conversion costs. So when we calculate that out, okay, 24,600 times 2.15 will give me $52,890 worth of conversion costs. $52,890. So what is the total value of my ending work in process? Well, direct materials plus conversion costs, let's add that together. 173,840 plus 52,890 gives me $226,730. So $226,730. So I had to account for $1,666,730 worth of total costs. How much cost do I have here? Well, if I add that up, 1,440,000 plus 226,730 gives me 1,666,730, exactly the amount I needed to account for. And so we are good to go. So we've computed the cost per equivalent unit. We did that right here in the first part. And then we assigned April's cost to the department output, specifically units that were transferred out, plus the output that is still being processed and is not yet complete. Now, let's go to our next example here, and let's look at a hybrid costing system here. College Life produces sweatshirts for college organizations and uses hybrid costing. It reports the following for its fabrication process. And it gives us this information right here is what they're reporting. Customers choose screen printed or embroidered logos. And as we see here, screen printed logos only cost $2, embroidered logos cost $10. Now we're asked to do a few things here. Compute the cost per unit for both the screen printed and embroidered sweatshirts. Okay, we want to get a per unit cost here. Well, they've already broken down some of this here, so we just got to figure this out. So let's look at the screen printed first. Direct materials, $12 per unit. Conversion costs, $6 per unit. And then the logo type right here, screen printed, $2 per sweatshirt. So when I add all that together, I am going to get $20 per sweatshirt. So the cost per unit or the cost per sweatshirt, $20. Now let's do the same thing, but for the embroidered sweatshirts. Direct materials, we looked at, there was $12 and $6 for conversion costs. And these two items right here are going to be where we have our process costing portion of the hybrid. The job order costing is in the logo type. And here's where we see that, because a screen printed logo only costs $2 to make. An embroidered logo costs $10 to make. So under the embroidered, I'm going to put $10 here. And what is my cost per unit when I add $12 plus $6 plus $10, $28. So that is my cost per sweatshirt for an embroidered logo. Okay. B, if the company has a target markup of 30% above cost, compute the selling price for each type of sweatshirt. Okay, this is what is known as cost plus pricing, where we take our costs, add a specific percent to it, and then that is what our selling price is. So let's take a look at our cost per unit for the screen printed. So that was $20. And the markup of 30%. So what is 30% of $20? $6. So their selling price is going to be 20 plus 6, $26. Now let's look at the embroidered. The embroidered one had a cost per unit of $28. And the markup is 30% of that. So 28 times 0.3 is 0 is $8.40. So my selling price per unit is my cost plus the markup. $28 plus $8.40 is $26.40. I'm sorry, $36.40. I need to learn how to add here in my head. It never fails. As soon as I get away from that calculator, There we go downhill. Okay, so the screen printed shirt will sell for $26. The embroidered sweatshirt will sell for $36.40. Okay. C. For the current period, the company added direct materials into production that should have produced 5,000 sweatshirts. Actual production was 4,900 non-defective sweatshirts. Compute the yield for this period. Express the answer in percent. Now, I copied this from somewhere else, but I wanted to. But the only reason I copied it is because I wanted to copy it because I wanted to give us the formula here, so we know what we have, what we're looking at here. So non-defective units produced divided by the units that could have or should have been produced. So let's take a look here. Let's see. We're told we should have produced 5,000 sweatshirts, but we only did 4,900 non-defective sweatshirts. So my non-defective sweatshirts, 4,900 divided by 5,000 units that I should have done. And so 4,900 divided by 5,000, 98% or 0.98. So I'll put 0.98 here. And then I will click up here to percent and transfer it to a percent. So my yield is 98%. I might want to go up here just to go out a decimal point or two in case that's not a round number. So my yield is 98%. And we're told to express the answer to percent. This is a percent, 98%. So we were efficient with our materials and we were able to create 98%. Now, continuous improvement would say, hey, what can we do? What can we find? And we can even look at the process costing data from our department to determine where do we miss it? Could we improve? How can we improve? Can we improve our processes? Did we just get wrong? Bad quality sweatshirt, material. Where do we miss? How can we improve? So 98% is probably very good. We only have a 2% wastage here, but we can be more efficient, I believe. So I would want to be pushing and seeing how much more improvement can we get. So anyway, this is Leroy Meadows. Thank you for being with me. Have a good day.